Our next speaker is Andrew Conway. Andrew Conway is a lifelong Washingtonian, veteran law enforcement detective, Army officer, and public servant with more than 20 years of experience serving his community. He was born and raised in North Bend, Washington. Andrew developed an appreciation for service, personal responsibility, and values that continue to define communities across the Pacific Northwest. Today, Andrew lives in Port Orchard with his wife and their 5 children. As a husband, father, military officer, and detective, he understands that public service is ultimately about protecting families, strengthening communities, and preserving the trust citizens place in those who serve them. Andrew currently serves as a detective with the Kitsap County Sheriff's Office, where he investigates serious crimes, including homicide, sexual assault, crimes against children, financial crimes, and other major felony offenses. Since joining the Sheriff's Office in 2017, he has served in both patrol and investigations, working alongside fellow deputies, detectives, prosecutors, and partner agencies to seek justice for victims and protect the community. His investigative experience spans violent crime, crimes against children, financial crime, and complex criminal investigations, providing him with firsthand insight into the public safety challenges facing Kitsap County. For more than 20 years, Andrew has simultaneously served both his local community and his nation through careers in law enforcement and military service. As a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army Reserve, he has led intelligence organizations and advised senior leaders in support of missions throughout Africa and the Middle East. Over the course of 4 deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, and Somalia, including 2 assignments supporting special operations units, Andrew developed a leadership philosophy rooted in trust, accountability, and shared purpose. He learned that leaders must set the standard, communicate clear intent, develop their people, and accept responsibility for outcomes. Those lessons continue to shape his approach to leadership, public service, and building stronger organizations. Andrew was recently selected for battalion commander, one of the military's most significant leadership responsibilities. In that role, he will be entrusted with the readiness, training, welfare, and development of hundreds of soldiers. The selection reflects a career built on service, professionalism, and leadership under pressure. Andrew earned a Master of Arts in Defense and Security Studies from the United States Naval War College and a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy from the University of Washington. Throughout his career, Andrew has remained guided by a simple principle. Public service is a public trust. Whether serving overseas, investigating crimes, or working within the community, he believes those entrusted with authority must exercise it with integrity, accountability, and humility. His commitment has always been to serve others, develop those around him, and leave every organization stronger than he found it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andrew Conway. Thank you for that introduction. So yeah, my name's Andrew. I am thankful to be here tonight. Thank you for Rick for allowing me to speak. I always like a soapbox and a captive audience. I want to talk about a few things tonight. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about leadership. Leadership has been a challenge at the Sheriff's Office in the time that I've been there. We've kind of addressed some of the issues already, but it's kind of an overarching problem that we've dealt with the entire time that I've been there. A lot of the problems that we face are rooted in failures in leadership, just based on my experience. I also want to talk a little bit about crime in Kitsap County. For the residents, anybody up here live in Poulsbo? You better watch yourself. That's where all the homicides are taking place these days, just so you know, all up in Poulsbo. So talk a little bit about crime in Kitsap County, kind of some of the trends that we're seeing, and then maybe some solutions that we can put together when Rick and I take the office. So, So when it comes to leadership, I think we all kind of have an innate understanding of what good leadership is, maybe from what bad leadership looks like or what our idea of good leadership has been or what's been modeled to us.
I personally have been blessed to serve in leadership positions at various levels in the military with different organizations over the last 20 years. Perhaps the one that's shaped me the most, as it was mentioned in my bio, is working with special operations. I'm very much a team of teams guy. I like working, I like empowering my leaders. I like empowering people below me to do things because it's less work for me. It makes things a lot more efficient, and it gives them a sense of responsibility and a sense of purpose. The other thing, one particular lesson that I've learned is that good leadership solves a lot of chronic issues, a lot of chronic problems that agencies and organizations face. As it relates to our sheriff's office, one of the biggest problems that we've been having in general, and it's not unique to us, but it is a problem, is we have retention issues. We have a hard time holding on to the people that we have, the people that we've trained. Some of it's pragmatic. Some of the Pierce County agencies, for example, are offering like $50,000 bonuses. It's hard to compete with that, right? They get a lot of money. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't looking over there. Never mind. But there are agencies that are offering lots of money. You can't really compete with that. But what I would say is, when it comes to retention, part of it is we need to create trust in leaders, right? We need to create trust in the people whom they're working for. Because I know from my military service and even in law enforcement, when you have a good leader, people will die on the hill for those leaders, right? They'll go as far as they possibly can in service of that and in service of their community. I also know that the other thing that's been lacking, at least in the sheriff's office when it comes to retention, is developing the people that we do have, developing leaders at the lowest level, not just at the sheriff or the executive level. Another issue that we deal with regularly is treating people fairly. I know it's a kindergarten scheme. It's something that you learn about on the playground and things like that, but it's not unique to us, right? There is a bit of a good old boys idea, right? And some of the people that have stayed in power continue to pass power down from generation to generation. And it's a kind of a bad gift that keeps on giving, right? It's that white elephant gift that nobody wants. And then the last thing is a sense of value, is they need to feel like that what they're doing matters, and that the people above them, the leaders, the sergeants, the lieutenants, think that what they're doing matters and that they matter, right? And that's reflected in a lot of different decisions. One of the most egregious, I think, that sticks in my mind is we lost a 20-year SWAT guy, highly trained, tactical guy. We lost him because our sergeants and lieutenants couldn't come up with a schedule that works best for him and his wife because they have small children. And to me, that's just unacceptable. That's not something that should have ever happened. The other part of retention is recruitment. So another issue that we need to address, and it's a leadership issue, is recruitment. Lots of agencies are having that issue, but what I do know is when you have good agencies, people don't want to leave, and new recruits that come in see that, and they want to be a part of that organization, not because maybe they don't make the most money, because if that were the case, Seattle PD would be fully stocked and nobody wants to work there. But short of that, everybody will see that and they'll be like, I'll take a little bit less money. I know I can make more money over here, but I want to work with good people. I want to work with a good agency, people that have my back, and people that take care of me. So it matters. Another good part of it is good leadership is accountable, right? Good leadership is accountable not only to themselves, which I think should be chief among them, but you should also be, you're accountable to the organization. For us, we're accountable to the county. We're accountable to the public, right? Because the public effectively, and this is something I think gets forgotten, the county pays our bills, right? The public. The people who we work for, the taxpayer. The taxpayer is the one that funds us. So it's in our best interest to take care of the people who take care of us. In addition, everyone needs to be held to the same standard. Standards are different amongst people. Standards are different among organizations. Standards are different amongst teams. But we need to set a standard first of all, and we need to maintain a standard following that. And then lastly on that, ending the leadership piece on a positive note, we also need to reward good behavior. We don't get a lot of rewards. There's not a lot of accolades in law enforcement unless you are the detective that solves the, 100-year, the once in a century case or something like that, and you get a Netflix deal or something like that. The last thing I want to say on leadership is that I think leadership matters the most in times of uncertainty. And we're very much in a time of uncertainty. Law enforcement today is operating in an environment that is constantly changing, mostly at the legislative level, but also at the lowest level. We have evolving threats and increasing expectations, right? George Floyd did us no service. The whole George Floyd situation was very problematic for law enforcement nationwide. But with all that requires us to adapt. You know, one of my favorite, a long time ago, maybe when I was in high school or something like that, I still have it framed in my office. I got a fortune cookie, you know, you get the fortune cookies and they come out of the little thing. And in the my fortune cookie said, life's not about holding all the cards, but sometimes just playing the hand you're dealt. And that's very much where we're at, right? We're not gonna have good cards, certainly not here, but we need to play the good hand well. Anyone can lead when it's easy, but leadership proves its value when it's most difficult, when the light at the end of the tunnel is not so obvious. So what are we trying to solve here? Well, so crime, I'll talk about, there's two major crime pieces that I want to talk about. It's crimes against children, because crimes against children is something that's not really talked about a lot, and it's a massive problem. It is a lot bigger of a problem than I ever thought that it would be, even when I was just working in patrol. Now that I'm in detectives, the mask is off, and there's a lot of nastiness out there that's going on. The other piece of it I want to talk about is drugs. Everybody's familiar with drugs. It's nothing new. But in the service of our children, I think 20 years ago, parents concerned themselves with who their children were hanging out with and where they were hanging out with them, right? Who they were hanging out with, who they were getting off the bus with, what they're doing after school, all that kind of stuff. Back in those days, predators really needed physical proximity. They needed to be near somebody to take advantage of them. There's somebody that was at the school pickup or something like that, waiting at the bus stop, at the grocery store, something along those lines. A child could leave home, go to school, and come home back in those days without any encounters with any strangers. You go to the bus stop, they're with the kids you know. You get on the bus with the kids you know and the bus driver you're familiar with. You get off the bus, you're at school with people you're familiar with, and you do it all in reverse. You can go an entire day not seeing any strangers, right? But nowadays, every child has, just about every child, hopefully not every child, but every child has a communication device. The schools are issuing them to you now, they're laptops, right? This gives predators unprecedented access to your children. Predators can anonymously reach hundreds of children at a time now. The grooming occurs without parents ever seeing it or knowing about it, and criminals can operate in another city, state, or in many cases now, in other countries. The internet removed the geography as a barrier. So children today kind of actually live two lives, right? They live an online life and they live an offline life, a physical life, which their physical life might just be in their bedroom for some. And it's having significant effects on the children, mind you, but that's a different conversation. Child exploitation investigations have become significantly more complex. Digital evidence and digital evidence processing is now central to many investigations. It's not uncommon for a single investigation to span multiple jurisdictions with multiple individuals from multiple different locations. These investigations are specialized, and the training and tools that are required are also specialized, many of which our sheriff's office does not currently have. The cases are very time sensitive and emotionally taxing. Technology has evolved, and our sheriff's office has not kept the pace. As should be the case with anything in society, children should be the priority. Children are the most vulnerable in our community. They typically lack the knowledge, maturity, and life experience necessary to combat predatory behaviors. The consequences of not addressing these issues in children are often life sentences for our children. Protecting children has always been among the most important tasks that we contend with in law enforcement. The changing environment has made it even more significant. Everyone loves statistics, so here are some as it relates to victimization in children. Individuals who experience childhood abuse are 59% more likely to be arrested as a juvenile and 28% more likely to be arrested as an adult. Individuals who experience childhood abuse are 30% more likely to commit a violent crime. Longitudinal research has shown that adverse child experiences are strongly associated with other substance abuse disorders, including illicit drug use. Which brings me to my next topic, which is drugs. So we all know about the fentanyl epidemic. We probably see it in the communities. You may even see it driving down Silverdale Way with somebody parked next to you whose face is on their steering wheel. It happens. We deal with it every day. Fentanyl has fundamentally changed the drug landscape. When I grew up in law enforcement, and mind you, I'm still relatively young in the law enforcement world. This is coming up on my 9th year. When I started, it was heroin and meth. Heroin and meth were the chief drugs of choice. Fentanyl is very, very potent. It knocks all of them out of the water. It's very cheap to acquire. It's easily transported and it's easily concealed. But it's also not new. Meth is still the stimulant of choice. We still see that, but cocaine is making a comeback. I don't think it's new to say, but drugs in general tend to drive the crime in our communities in a lot of different ways. You're never going to stop the crimes of passion, the DV crimes, those sorts of things, right? Those are always going to be there for as long as humans are interacting with each other. But the property crimes are the biggest ones that we see with illicit drug use. Burglaries, thefts, shoplifts, all that kind of stuff. That's all related. Car prowls, identity theft, these big identity theft schemes, although some of those are being done by actual nation states. One of the biggest problems that we created for ourselves here in this county is we got rid of WestNet. WestNet was our drug enforcement group. They were federally funded, which was part of the problem. Not to belabor that point, but it was federally funded. Some of the money got pulled, and we ended up just disbanding it altogether. So there's no actual drug enforcement mechanism, drug enforcement investigations. And what makes drug investigations unique is that drug investigations take a really long time to develop. You have to get sources, you have to develop people, you have to get people that are close to the groups, and you have to get people that are willing to buy drugs, you get them on the hook, you sell drugs, you do all this kind of stuff, right? These sorts of things take months to do. And it's not something that we have the capability to do any longer. That's something that needs to change. Kitsap County has become a hub for drug distribution for the entire peninsula. And we're even getting some down into Tacoma now too, but because Tacoma is actually doing a pretty good job of drug enforcement. But we're becoming a distribution hub for drugs. That's not a good feather in our cap. I don't think anybody up here is proud of that. The other thing that we see, that we've seen a disturbing increase in, because fentanyl comes in pill form, and some of these pills, I don't know if you've seen them on social media, but some of them look like candy. Some of them look like or pink or light blue or whatever. Kids are finding these. Just recently, we have a kid, we just made an arrest for a 15-month-old that ingested one and died. Right? At a daycare, by the way. Forgot that part. Yeah. Can do the math on that one. That one's hard to figure. Yeah, so these things are happening, and we're seeing an increase in fentanyl-related deaths in children. For whatever reason, we're seeing fentanyl-related deaths in children under the age of 2, which is really concerning. The drug problem isn't going to go away. It's not going to go away. It's going to continue to evolve, right? But the problem is if we don't have an enforcement mechanism to put pressure on them. In the military, we call it, they've been granted freedom of movement, right? They can do whatever they want, wherever they want, however they want to do it. And that's not good. So we need to put pressure, we need to continue to put pressure on them. So some solutions. I want to just complain about the situation here. Leadership is among the chief, right? Leadership is one of the biggest problems that we face. It takes strong and courageous leaders to step up and to fight this fight. It's not going to be an easy fight. There's definitely a fair amount of resistance, certainly at levels much higher than I work currently. One thing I would say is in the military, I think a lot of people think leadership is something that people are just born with. It's just like people just have that charisma or whatever, right? Well, in the military, the one thing the military does really, really well is they spend an inordinate amount of time training that skill. It's a skill that they give people. Right? And they do it. We do not do that in law enforcement, at least not in the law enforcement that I've worked. We do a terrible job of training people on how to lead, on how to be examples, on how to set the example. We need to get back to it. For the child crimes in particular, one of the biggest things that we can do to help out there is we need to modernize our investigations. Our investigations are going to have to get out of just computers. We're going to have to get out of working out of screens, and we're going to need to get some technology at our backs in order to do this. Because the landscape's changing, it's increasingly going online, and we're increasingly falling behind. And then the last thing, we need to bring back some sort of investigative capacity for drugs to some degree. I think here in this county, there is an appetite amongst many of the agencies that I've spoken to set up sort of a metro group of detectives and investigators to go back into drugs. The city of Bremerton is actually doing that to a smaller scale right now, and they've had some success doing it. We need to get back to it as a group. And then the other thing I really, really want to see, and it's a personal passion project of mine, is I actually want to bring DARE back into schools. I still remember the officer who taught me DARE, and I still remember the absolutely disturbing photos that he showed in that class when I was a 5th grader. They stuck with me, and I always wondered why the hell anybody would ever want to do that stuff. And I think others could benefit from that as well. So I don't think we're doing questions, but if you guys have questions for me, I'd be happy to take them at the end. Thank you.